So, so I'm in Romans the other day. Not Romans, the department store. Is there a department store? Um, Romans 5:20, and something just jumped out at me. But where sin increased, grace increased all the more. And this came right around the time I had a conversation with my wife about how we really needed to get back to church. How our and I'm going to speak just for myself because I don't want to speak for her, but how my relationship with church and with God is it's just like hot and then cold. Like really, it's all or nothing. Like it's ridiculous. And how many probably 50 times in my life I've gone from going to church and praying, being in the Word, and being really plugged in all the time to nothing. Like almost overnight. Like I go on a business trip and I come back, it's like, oh, I'm just too tired. And then I lost that. Like, is my relationship with God that feeble and that precarious? Is that the word I'm trying to say? I don't know. But is my relationship with God that weak? That I go on a business trip, or I go on a camping trip, or whatever, or I miss a day because I have to leave to work early and I just don't have time, oversleep, whatever. That bam, it's gone, and I have to start all over, and I only do this on momentum. Is God just gonna? Is he just gonna one day to say, you know what? Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's like breaking up with somebody, right? Like 5 times, and after the 5th time, it's like, you know what? It's no. You go find somebody else. So I'm going to do my best to read some notes that I wrote here. After I read this, I like to journal, and this came out more like a narrative, which is good for a podcast rather than just a journal. And it struck a chord with me. But when I write like this, I write really sloppy. So I've already tried to read this once, and I'm like, I stopped too many times. So I'm going to do the best I can here. So bear with me, because I think this really captures my heart where I was the other day, and I think it makes a point about God's infinite grace. That's the ultimate point here. So recently, the subject of grace jumped out at me. We heard a great sermon on Titus and on arguing and having grace towards other. That opened the door. I realized that grace isn't just a one-time deal where God gives it and we're all good. God gives grace as an example for all of us in our lives. This may seem obvious to many, but it wasn't to me. See, in the past few months, I like many Christians, I'm sure, slowly and unintentionally started to walk away from my relationship with God. Like the old friend you just simply stopped seeing because life got busy. I just stopped praying and being in the Word. How quickly I forgot about grace. How quickly I forgot about the grace given to me, and how quickly I stopped giving grace to others, especially to my wife and my kids. Things have come to a boil recently, and in a burst of grace, a few key conversations, and a desperate longing in my heart, God once again graced me with the realization that I had gone prodigal again. So, through the fogginess of my heart, through the fogginess in my heart, I dragged myself to church for only the 3rd time in 3 months. I know this because I write the date in my notes every time I go to church. Embarrassing. For whatever reason, the worship band read through the prodigal son. I'd already been thinking about the prodigal son that morning, which is the craziest thing. Is that crazy when you're thinking about a certain thing and you're like relating to it, and then they bring it up in church? Like, oh, is this about me? Yep, it was about me. The story is always about me. That's God's amazing wisdom. It's always about each and every one of us in our unique ways. He knows the human condition. He created it. Now, while the story of the prodigal son depicts one return, God knows it's an ebb and flow for many of us. And we leave and return. God's grace simply increases infinitely. He will never say no. He'll never say no to our returning. For the addict who returns the 343rd time, the gambler who desperately begs for forgiveness after losing the grocery money the 20th time, and the dad that realizes he's let his family down the 30th time by being spiritually lazy. All the angels and saints rejoice at his return. it's um, it's hard for us to realize this. Most of us don't have it in it to do. Most of us don't. There's my writing. I can't read it. Most of us don't have it in us to do this. This is why we aren't God, right? We must be aware of the presence of grace in our lives. It's not just to remember to give it to those in need. For me to understand my wife's struggles and to show empathy. For that coworker who isn't showing up. For the kids who fight constantly. Grace in everyday situations is a beautiful thing. So that's kind of where I left off my writing there. I think at that point I had to go eat some breakfast. But it just makes me think that, in maybe the way I wrote this, maybe someone could say, well, yeah, grace is a one and done thing. And I get it. Grace, when we're talking the grace of salvation, God dying for us, it's one and done, right? But there's so much more. See, this life isn't just about figuring out how to get to heaven. This life is about enjoying life here, God's splendor. God's our Father, and He wants us to have a happy life. He wants us to be successful. He wants us to be joyful. He wants, like you like to see your kids playing on the playground or whatever. You like to see your kids happy and successful. That's what He wants for us. And this just made me realize this. So He certainly gives us the grace because He wanted to give us the grace and He loves us. But He also gives it as an example. Giving it to people who clearly don't deserve it. Like the prodigal son, right? He did all these situations you read in the Bible. And reason number 412 to read the Bible every day, you see this. And you see enough and you realize, boy, if I got what I deserved, I'd be in trouble. But if I can use this as an example to be a little bit better of a husband, and instead of focusing on myself and saying, well, my wife is doing this, it's just not fair and I don't like it. Understanding her position and giving her some grace and going, okay, it's just like my kids. I mean, so some random person's kids. Not my kids. I'm perfect. But seeing grace, learning how to give it back, it just struck a chord with me that I can live a little happier life. But I certainly know that I come and go in this relationship with God, and I want to stop doing that. But He'll take me back a million times. But when I'm there, when I'm in it, and I'm reading, I'm the person I want to be. I'm connected with the Scripture, the person I want to be, because I'm reading about grace, and I'm going to do what I read about. Right? It's just sort of like you are what you eat, you are what you study, you are what you focus on. I see the value of giving grace, and I see the happiness it can bring to my life and to those around me. It's there in the Scripture. Reason number 10 million to read the Bible every day, right? So that's it. I just not a whole lot else to say today, but that just jumped out at me. So that's Romans 5:20. It's like half the verse. It's not even the whole thing. So we'll leave it at that. Until next time, have a great day.